And we are broadcasting on Facebook Live, Periscope, Twitch, D Live, YouTube, and a bunch of other places. Appreciate y'all joining in. Mic check, mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic
Mic
check.
check.
Mic check.
And we'll just wait a second for Tawana to come back. And for all those who are watching from Facebook, if you will please log onto your Facebook, head over to my page, and start a watch party. That'll get us more eyes on this feed as well. My name is Benjamin Young Savage. You can find me pretty easily by putting in my last name, Jancewicz. Always remember that when you start a watch party from your Facebook page, people will comment on that watch party and you can interact with people right from there. Alrighty.
I'm gonna go to her page and share it. We're gonna just share that so What's the weather like there?
Sunny and cool at the moment.
Beautiful day today in Baltimore.
Yeah, it's kind of hot out here in sunny California. It's sunny today.
Hi everybody, can somebody check and see if it's on my page?
I will.
Can you check with somebody? I don't know. But hi everybody, sorry, I'm starting up a little bit late because I just went from Ben's page, so I'm just trying to make sure everything's good. But we're at 350, and I'm just so happy that I have two very special guests on here. I have the uncle and aunt of Oscar Grant, and I'm gonna start them off by letting them tell what happened to their loved one, their fight, their struggle, and I just want to give them a special shout out because they connect victims all around the world. All around the world. When y'all seen me when I was able to go to Las Vegas and join them, and just different cities to join their fight, and they're going to explain all about what they do. But I just want to thank y'all for being on the front line. Thank y'all for all y'all do. Thank you so much. Mic check.
Don't forget to unmute yourself.
I got it.
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I am the uncle of Oscar Grant, the young man killed at the Fruitvale BART station in Oakland, California on January 1st, 2009. As a result, of course, his murder. I'm not sure if all of you have seen the movie titled Fruitvale Station, but that was spending a day in Oscar's life, who was the young man that I'm speaking about today, my nephew. Um, I'm not sure how much I should go into this, but if you've seen the movie, you pretty much got the gist of what happened on the BART platform that evening or that early morning New Year's Day. And for those who may not know or heard of Oscar Grant, he's the young man, again, that was murdered at the Fruitvale BART station. And what happened in, real synopsis way was that he was pulled off the BART train. He was eventually threw down to the platform in a prone position with his hands crisscrossed behind his back. Tony Peroni had his knee on his neck, really breaking the bones, his facial bones in his face. Tony Peroni was 6'1", 250 pounds. Johannes Mesley was on his back, weighing 270 pounds, and he's 6'7". Oscar frame is 150 pounds, 5'10". Of course, as Oscar crisscrossed his arms behind his back to be handcuffed, Johannes Mesley stands up, shoots Oscars in the back. Bullet goes through his body and then ricochets off the concrete floor, hitting him in the chest. Of course, collapsing his lung. He dies some hours later. Uh, what was really tremendous about our case and the importance of it was the fact that there were bystanders under train that pulled out their cameras and began to record. These same bystanders and many others uploaded it to YouTube for the world to see. So we were able to witness a execution, a murder, outright murder of Oscar by Johannes Messerly. Of course, it really sent California, especially Northern California, into a panic state about police violence, and protesting began. Of course, the city, to some degree, caught on fire. Everything we saw happening with the Ferguson movement happened in Oakland years before. A result of that was that we were able to get, for the first time in California state history, an officer arrested, charged, convicted, and sent to jail. You know, we don't count it as a victory, but it's historic because sadly there are still more bodies that has been killed here in the state of California behind police violence. But what's significant about it is that how important it is for us to become our brother's keeper, to pull out our cameras, stay at a safe distance, and record what's going on. Because that, if we had not had that video, none of us today would know who Oscar Grant is or what happened to him. You know, we're thankful for those commuters that were brave enough to pull out their cameras, upload it to YouTube for the world to see, and that police violence is real and alive in the United States, and that we, as a community, can help begin to curb that essence by being more involved, again, by pulling out our cameras, letting the world see with their own eyes what's really going on.
And I just want to say also what came of that is that Oscar's uncle, Uncle Bobby, after his nephew was murdered, began embracing other families. It started really in 2009, but really 2010 when Derek Jones was murdered, just days after the judge, racist judge Robert Perry. But we have to understand that when this even though Johannes Messerly, who killed Oscar, is the first officer in California history, he's been the only officer, which is sad and sick. So many people have been murdered. But at that time in 2010, nobody was talking about the police like now. When I tell you we was breaking the ceiling and the officer being charged and arrested, nobody wanted him to go to prison. That's why he didn't go. He gave him good time served so he could break it down to 11 months so he could spend the time in jail instead of prison. So that's how serious this fight is. But I just wanted to say that out of that came the Families United for Justice, because from 2010, and really I'm going to say this, that Hillary Clinton did not start the Mothers of the Movement, Uncle Bobby did. He actually had his first mothers September 2010. And he had 1,000 mothers come, that was the name of it, to come to downtown Oakland to put it together. But from then to now, we have families from all over the United States coming, and we come together once a year. And what is it for? It's for the families to empower themselves, to love each other, to get some tools to go back and fight and to get encouraged. And I think for me and for us, that is the biggest thing, because we know that 10 years ago, there was no hashtags. And people were arguing with you when you say F the police, okay? Because people still believe that the police was these really wonderful people. And they might have some, but I just know our experience. And I know that what we suffer in our community of them, and that it's a long road, and we just want to thank the families for standing up, after standing up, and then our queen sister, Tawana, there's nobody else like her because she's doing it. And we salute you. All right. And that's what I want to say about the work that's being done, not just by us. We have a board, you know, and matter of fact, on Friday, we're going to have a town hall with families from all over the country. I hope Tawana come on and say a few words. Yes, yes, and we have a special entertainer, and we have a special person that's going to come on. So we're going to have our families United for Justice come together, because at this time, Corona time, I mean, how difficult and how much healing would have to be done if and when we come out of this, because families are in their homes, you know, dealing with the loss of a loved one, and people who haven't lost a loved one is going through mental tribulation. So how does that impact our families who have been impacted by this racist police terrorist state? So we're gonna have a lot of work to do if and when we come out. But in the meantime, we're gonna try to do a little something on Friday to inspire the families, to encourage the families, and that to help a little bit to get through this time.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
My chat.
My chat.
Mic check.
Yes, I just want to jump back in and say just thank y'all for all the work, and it's definitely needed at this horrible time that we're seeing. And I never thought that we would even see. You know, whoever thought we would actually see a time when outside was closed, a time when families have to mourn losing their loved one without even having a proper a funeral, a time when you can't even go to the hospital and be by your loved one's side. That is horrible. That's the biggest nightmare. Nothing. And I don't think, and I pray to God we don't see anything else like this in our time. This is something that's going to affect everybody, like worldwide. Doesn't matter your race, doesn't matter anything. It's just horrible. Nobody deserves to die alone, and that's what's happening. It's scary because if you think about it, you get a symptom, you get rushed in. That may be the last time your family see you ever again. And I'm gonna be honest, me personally, I don't trust hospitals. Like I'm real paranoid about doctors because I don't trust people that can play God. You get what I'm saying? And don't know the reason why they might say, well, you know what, I'm gonna let her die. And then my family can't be there to stand up for me and they let me die and say, oh, well, she had an underlying problem and she just died. Like, no, like heck no, it's just too much though. Mike check.
Mic check. Mic check.
I think my sister was saying something.
Yeah, just so everybody knows, everybody gets muted when one person talks.
Okay. My check. I just wanted to say you are so correct. Before they got on CNN and said that was happening, I knew it was happening because we were getting calls. You know, white supremacy and everything, unfortunately, especially with this, right? So, because the powers to be, they really can spare us. In their head, they feel like, okay, so well, we lose about 20,000, 50,000 black people. Oh well, our people, period. And it goes beyond just us because the powers to be, their bottom line is this dollar. So you have heard them say that we are expendable.
Yep.
With that. But I just wanted to say to my sister, fret not, because once you see the handwriting of God on the wall, then you just sit back and your faith kicks in. Your glory to God kicks in. Your unity with your family. Because I'm gonna tell you, before this happened, this God needed to arrest this world. Because we were out of control and we didn't have no respect for life on both sides. And now we can't even be with our loved ones. See, we gotta start. This is all for us to have respect for life, to honor life, and to appreciate life more. If we don't get nothing else out of that, that is what we should be getting out of this. Because we have to be honest in America and even in our communities and in other communities. We have devalued life and have no value for life. And now, instead of us just thinking, see, now we thinking any day we can die. Any day we could have always died. But we were so arrogant and so ungrateful in our living that we wasn't even able to realize that God could take us when he wants to. He could do whatever he wants. But now maybe we will appreciate life. That's what I want to say.
Yes, my chat.
My chat.
That was beautiful, sis. And that's what it's about. A lot of things in life we take for granted. Like, literally, I just remember telling, like, friends and family, oh, we going to hang out tomorrow, and then, oh, I'm too tired, or something like that. Or I let the fight sometimes get in my way of enjoying the beautiful things in life and putting things off that ain't even promised you. So you hit it on the nose. Absolutely. My chat. I think Mayor Ricky wanted to speak next.
Good evening, family. Um, can you hear me good? So the wanted to weigh in this weekend. So first of all, before anything, I wanna say, Sister Tawanda, much love, much respect for you, for Families United for Justice. It's amazing for West Wednesday. This is 350 weeks going strong, and it shows the courage, your passion, and your commitment, as well as your followers and your supporters, Uncle Bill, and everyone. When you got folks that don't stand for anything for 3 hours, but yet you all have been advocating and fighting for justice, not just for your family, for all families for over 350 weeks. So again, much love, much respect, as always. Thank you for allowing me to chime in tonight. I wanted to bring up a couple of things. One, through this pandemic, it definitely has, I believe, shaken the nation, shaken, of course, Baltimore City. But I want to remind folks not to take their eyes off the prize. It seems like now we're only talking about pandemic, but we're still not talking about the issues that we are facing in our Black and Brown communities. Earlier this year, it was a huge coverage, or a lot of coverage, concerning the young Black women, teenagers that are being snatched off the street. And yet we haven't had any more media coverage or dialogue about the ongoing issues and young ladies being snatched off of our streets. I have been engaged in conversation with the FBI since last year, and even through this pandemic, we've still been talking about it. But the sad part about it is it's even up higher now that we have this pandemic, and yet we still don't have coverage in our communities and for our Black and Brown young sisters being snatched off the street. Not just young ladies, but kids being exploited as well. I was on a call this morning with the FBI, and just getting an update. I am actively on the phone with them on a weekly basis. They have a special unit that is investigating this. And the sad part about it is it's really highly impacted in Black and Brown communities. We were this morning talking about Baltimore City, which is in the top 7. And I don't know if you guys have heard that information, but the top 7, prior to the pandemic, Baltimore fell within the top 20 or something like that. Now we're in the top 10. We're number 7 when it comes to the most kids or minority kids being snatched up or disappearing on the street. And this is unfortunately what they released today. This is what's been reported. But how many of our young kids, teenagers are homeless that are still missing, that have not been reported? So those numbers that they shared, the fear is unfortunately it may be much higher than what it is. I continue to say, and this isn't, for many that know me, this isn't a campaign speech, but I continue to say that everyone that looks like you and I are not for you and I. It's amazing and sad that across this nation, not only in Baltimore City, but in Black cities and Black communities and Black neighborhoods where we are largely represented by Blacks, we still have many of the issues and concerns that we're currently facing today when we talk about food deserts and so on. So my prayer this evening is for Baltimore City and across this nation. This is a huge time for us, or an important time for us when it comes to voting. I know that some may be discouraged about our political process. At one point, I was the same, and to a certain extent, I still am the same, kind of disappointed with our political process. But we have to start voting folks in office that are not just looking like you and I, but that are for the communities. And so I say that because this year, of course, we have the presidential election, we have mayoral elections and congressional and Senate. But I'm asking everyone, do your research. Sister Tawanda will tell you, I tell folks that if Ricky Vaughn is your candidate, great. I'm humble. I appreciate it. We're going to go to work. We're going to go fighting. But if Ricky Vaughn isn't, there's someone else out there. Do your research. Let's stop voting across this nation on popularity and start voting on people that really want to make a change in our communities. It's sad we still, year after year, campaign season after campaign season, talk about the same damn issues when you talk about people who's talking about, I'm bringing change, this is what I want to do. You got so many people right now fighting for youth in our city, but damn it, they've been in office for 8+ years, and what was that fight at then? We can't keep voting for people that show up and try to take the black vote or any vote for granted just because of popularity and name recognition. A lot of folks show up just around photo ops and campaign season, but when you got a family that just lost a loved one, they're the last one, or not even the individual that knock on the door to hug someone and say, I'm here to support you, I'm here to hug you, and I'm here to just walk down the street with you. My mom, as many know, I lost my brother to gun violence in Baltimore City. He was an innocent bystander 2 years ago when they started shooting. I didn't have the elected official, I didn't have the mayor, I didn't have the city councilman of that district. I didn't have anyone to knock on the door to my mom and say, I'm so sorry for your loss. And that is sad. And even if you can't show up and knock on the damn door, we got telephones now. But no one called, no one knocked on the door to say, hey, I'm here for you. And it's not just about my mom and my family, but so many other families out there in our black communities where we are represented by black leaders that seem like black lives still don't matter. And not only from some white folks, but from some black folks too, it seems like black lives don't even matter. So if you really want to make a change, we are going to make sure that we investigate, we vet every single person running for every single office, and we put the right damn person in office, and those that don't represent us, the asses need to go. Yes, I said the word asses. The asses need to get out of there. And once mayor of Baltimore City, I've said it before and I'll say it publicly, I'm cleaning house. Everybody's ass got to go, from the police department to secretaries in City Hall, the folks that work in recreation and parks. You're not about us and you're not for us, and you will not represent us moving forward after 2020. So my prayers and support is always with you, Sister Twanda, all of the families out there, with Baltimore City and with this nation. But we have to wake up and we have to start holding folks accountable for their actions and their words. I love you guys. Please make sure that we keep our eye on the prize when it comes to these young kids out there. It's so sad, and the even saddest part about it, on this call, it's a national call, but it was only 2 individuals from Maryland, one from Baltimore, which was me, but 2 from Maryland that was on that call with the FBI today, and the other individual was from County Executive also Brooks down in Prince George's County. She has someone from her staff or her office on the call as well. But all of a sudden, earlier this year, every elected official and every candidate was talking about this. But now all of a sudden, it's not media or national coverage, so we don't have to be out there supporting or be out there in front of it. So I have to give a shout out to Angela also Brooks, her team, for at least taking initiative to be on the call. And actually her one of her representative was also asking questions, very engaged. So again, thank you. And it's sad that, we're still in this pandemic. We still have a huge issue when it comes to crime in Baltimore City. We have passed the mark this year compared to last year when it comes to murder rate. We were also talking about some of the violent crimes that are happening in Baltimore City today, even with this pandemic, where our black sisters are being violated. They were talking about that on the call today. So we got to stay focused, and we got to make sure that we're on top of it, and we're not just watching folks when they show up for cameras, and not watching folks when they show up behind the scenes, supporting the cause and supporting the movement. So thank you for allowing me to be here tonight and share. God bless you all, and again, thank you, Sister Tawana.
Mic check. I just wanted to acknowledge we have a whole bunch of people online. We are now streaming live on Instagram as well as Facebook, Twitch, Periscope, YouTube, and a bunch of other mediums. We had Charlene come into the conversation, and she made mention that a lot of the homeless youths are being exploited, but it's also very underreported. We only know the data of the ones that are reported. And she also made the note about stopping voting on popularity. Mic check.
Mic check. Can I say, I think that I think that we talk about this, but we should be in a solution mode. I think one of the solutions at this time, if brother is talking with and have a collective of people concerned about this, since what they can do, since this is a crisis and we had a state of emergency, that maybe they can talk to the government and have them have some funds where they set up homes for these homeless people, young people, because if they don't have nowhere to go, where do you think they're going to be? They're going to be with the abusers and the people who are exploiting them. But we don't have anything in place for them, like a shelter, like come here during this crisis time of corona. They deserve it too. They deserve some stimulus, okay? So I would suggest that you could maybe talk to whoever to get to whoever so we can around the country, not just Baltimore. It comes out of Baltimore or wherever, but it's some place that you could give stimulus to the states that are having this problem where they can have a temporary shelter for these young people who are being exploited or in the streets doing this for a living. So it's something that can be done. We just got to do it and we can stop talking and do some things. And on the political side, yes, we do have to stop just voting for people. And I have a solution for the presidency. It might seem crazy, but if we want to get rid of Donald Trump, we already got Biden in there. Since we're not across no political parties, because at this time everybody's lives matter, right? Life or death. So he could get a Republican and they can win and get Donald Trump out. Let's see if America can work together. How about that? That's something new. Ain't never been tried, but we in the new area. Get somebody, not Pence, okay, but get somebody, a Republican and a Democrat, and see if they can fix the United States of America. Because it's not about political parties. It's about people and making sure that everybody have freedom, justice, and equality. I just want to say
Absolutely, Queen. If I can say, that is something that I believe is different about my campaign. My campaign is very diverse. My campaign manager is a Republican. My communications director is a Republican. I'm a registered Democrat. I have individuals on my committee, and not only on my committee, but on my payroll that represents the LBGT community. And not because I'm campaigning. Part of my background is I'm a business owner. I own restaurants throughout the country. And I've always learned early on in my career with McDonald's, where I started, was how to build diversity because diversity builds unity. And so I absolutely agree. And to chime in on, that is one, you made a great point. That is one of the conversations we're having about reallocating funds from the federal government when it comes to building. We talk a lot about building shelters, but in Baltimore per se, where I'm from, I know it's happening in Baltimore, definitely Atlanta. We have shelters, but we don't have family shelters. So we talk about keeping the black man in family and unity, but we have shelters where you have families that are homeless. But when they go to the shelters, they separate the fathers from the families. And so we've been talking about having shelter for families as well as shelters for teens, and making sure that this is not anything that's going to be a quick fix or anything, but making sure that we allocate or reallocate funds and resources that actually will do that. And then we also not only need to reallocate the funds, but we need to track that and measure. We need to make sure that the funds going to our teams are actually for our teams and being utilized for our teams. So great point on that as well. Mic check.
We had Shanae come on Facebook, and she said, I am against the exploitation of any type, but stimulus checks and free housing are still representative of a passive existence. We, the people, need control over all the resources and policy. Mic check, mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
that's agreed. We do, but also we should come together and pool our resources. But however, those are our tax dollars.
Yeah.
They do not belong to Donald Trump because he don't even pay taxes. How about that?
Yeah.
Twan, if I could speak here, I just want to, of course, say that for you, and thank you for all you do with this, and I want to recognize Ricky because I know that a lot of politicians come out, when it's campaign time, and I've seen Ricky out here with us on the street corner for for years now, and he's a regular. So when he talks, he has reason to say what he says, and I want to go along with everyone who's talked about how this is a moment that defines, but it clarifies, but it also just continues the same thing that we always see, that this is a problem not of people. Individual policemen can be wonderful people, but they're in a system that's built on death and exploitation, and that we need to keep in mind that that what we see with COVID-19 and all this, people are dying. They're not dying just from getting a virus. They're dying from having comorbidities, from not having medical care, from being poor, from being they're dying from racism. They're dying from all sorts of things, all of which come out of that pursuit of power that is so much what is wrong with our system. And so, as I keep saying, there's only one fight, and I want us all to, stay aware of that. And I just want to take my moment that I usually take here and talk about the casualties, some of the casualties of that fight. People who died from violence in Baltimore this week. And if y'all could just, give me a mic check for each of these people, just repeat their names out loud. Here in Baltimore, these are the people who died from homicide between the 7th and 11th of this month. Joseph Mitzker, 25.
Joseph Mitzker, 25.
William Barrett, 20.
William Barrett, 20.
Barrett, 20.
Carlos Brown, 20.
Carlos Brown, 20.
Kenyon Rogers, 23.
Kenyon Rogers, 23.
23.
Excuse me, I just lost my page. Oh. I'm sorry, I've lost my. Let me see if I can
Take your time, brother.
bring this back real quick. Yeah, here we go. Thank you, got him back. Jesse Demari, 51.
Jesse Damari,
Jesse
51.
Demar.
51.
Dontrell Tolliver, 20.
Dontrell Tolliver,
Rose
20.
Oliver, 20.
Robert Green, 27.
Robert Green, 27.
27.
Thank y'all.
Mic check, mic check.
Can I say a quick thing? That's my heart aches like so many others that the names that were just read off in Baltimore. 7 names from the 7th to the 11th. And if many watching did not catch that, 6 of the 7 are under the age of 30. We have to take back our communities and our streets across this nation. I wanted to also weigh in and say, we've had an incident for those watching from around the world that was national news, where we had a supervisor, a police sergeant, that was in one of our communities that was coughing deliberately and passing germs. And that, to me, I don't believe received the coverage, and he did not receive the disciplinary action that should have been taken. For those that don't know Baltimore, the officer is and I continue to stress, supervisor. He's a police sergeant. So a supervisor that's supposed to be leading by example and supposed to be the model of what supervision and management is within law enforcement was seen and videotaped in Perkins Home, which is our public housing, our projects for those that want to get real with the terminology, coughing when a resident, which was videotaped, was showing respect to the police officer, smiling at the police officer, calling him officer friendly in a friendly, non-harmful way or disrespectful way. And the disciplinary action that was taken was he was reassigned to another damn district. we have to bring into this in our black and brown communities. If he was in a white community, number one, he would not have even done that. Number two, they would have demanded his ass be terminated. But in our city, where we are 80% led by African Americans, they felt as though the best course of action was to reassign him to a different district. And I'm bringing this up because for too long, that's what we have allowed in our city and in our communities, so where we hold folks not accountable for their actions. Now, if it was someone of color that did that in a different community, I assure you it probably would have been a different outcome. It would have been charges of assault, charges of attempted murder, and everything else where they'll throw the book. But for some reason, we have leaders and elected officials who think it's all right for someone to play games with black lives when they clearly say, or they supposed to say that black lives matter. But in this case, it only matters when we say it matters. So we have to unite and come together and make sure that we hold anyone accountable, especially those in office and sworn to serve and protect. But yet, that's not what he was out there doing. So I just wanted to bring, because that pissed me off this week, that the outcome was reassignment, but it even would have been a black officer that would have done something like that, and I assure you we would have probably had a different outcome. Now, what happens if that individual go to the hospital and she was harmed or she was affected? What happens then? Oh, well, the officer was just, he wasn't serious about it. He was just, it doesn't matter. So again, we have to make sure that we stay focused on the issues in this country and in our city and not let a lot of things that's been happening before be swept under the rug. Mic check.
Mic check.
I just wanted to say
Mic check.
that I was appalled at that too, and I call it a terrorist attack personally, because we're dealing with coronavirus, right? But also, I wanted to say, in this time, we have to teach our people what's the best method of getting across, because we can't protest in the streets right now. So we have to teach our people when stuff like this happens, like in Miami, where the police officer sergeant pulled up on his brother who was a doctor, who was just cleaning out his van to get some more stuff to take to the community that they have forgotten, and he put handcuffs on him. After he told him what he was doing respectfully, he put the handcuffs on him. But before he did, he said, "You need to call me sergeant." He was on some other kind of, how, like he was mad because the brother was a doctor. You know what I'm saying? So we have these things happening. But when this happens, what do? We protest, and we have to protest from the best way that we can, which is, at this point, we have town hall meetings, virtual town hall meetings, so that we can get everybody involved, because everybody, even though you think everybody know about it, they might not even know about it, and put an action out to call the police. If everybody out at home all day with nothing to do and shelter in calling the police, they're gonna get tired of that. So we still have some weapons. We just have to tell our people how to use them. But if we don't teach our people how to use them, stuff's gonna happen and nothing's gonna happen, because remember, we're in coronavirus time. So we have to consider that too. So maybe that might have had something to do with it, but that doesn't mean that it's over and you can't fix it. You can start having virtual town hall meetings and getting the community involved, and then y'all can start flooding the police department or whoever else you need to flood, because everybody home all day anyway.
Mic check.
Mic check. So one thing I want to say about that, given the leadership of our city being lackadaisical on that officer, I really want to say that it's on all levels. It just came out at about 6 o'clock. Our mayor Jack Young, said that he endorses, instead of demanding, that Baltimoreans wear face masks, and that he advises employers to develop policies to, quote, regarding masking that will protect their employees. That does not sound to me like someone who cares about the people of Baltimore. This is a pandemic. We are on track to be hit as hard as New York City is, and yet we do not have education going out to these communities like the one in which the sergeant walked through. One of the things that the video recorder said while the sergeant was coughing on her, She mocked him and she said black people cannot catch this disease anyway, which is patently not true. But it is a result of the lack of healthcare literacy that happens in the communities in Baltimore City. And yet our leadership is endorsing wearing face masks rather than actually putting in any solid steps to make sure that the people are protected. In Spain, what they're doing is they're having policemen walk around public transportation and they are handing out face masks for free to anybody that doesn't have them. That's the kind of leadership that would protect Baltimore City, but that is not the kind of leadership we have in Baltimore. Mike, check.
Right. And that was a great point. I actually, I was on the WLB today, and I was talking about that. I know one of the things, unfortunately, we have so much of this going on, especially in the restaurant industry, where you have folks preparing other folks' food, and they're not even masked up or covered up. And that was something that I was discussing today, where the mayor, which has the authority and has the power, should have signed executive order making sure that within the employers, when it comes to retail or whatever the restaurants or retail, Walmart or whomever, to making sure that they do cover up and protect themselves as well as their customers. But you're right. When you talk about from a leadership standpoint, if we don't think outside the box, and again, I'm not saying the mayor, city council, anyone's supposed to have all the answers, but you should be intelligent enough or smart enough to surround yourself with folks that can bring some light and insight to it and bring the knowledge to the table. And again, you're right. Until we have these important discussions, until we elect and put the right folks in office, we're going to continue to talk about the same things. And that is another thing that I mentioned last week on the radio, where we should have, when we talk about the MTA, we should have officers or representatives from the MTA handing out masks to folks before they get on the bus. But this is another example of how folks don't care about us, because that is, to me, common sense. If I know I'm about to put 10, 15 people on a bus, and I know it's killing, especially in Baltimore, where you're 80% or 67% African American, and we see the numbers right now, I'm going to make sure that I think outside the box and use common sense and say, hey, in order to get on the bus, you have to put this mask on your face. Because a lot of folks, unfortunately, may not have the resources and means to get it, but that shouldn't stop us from making sure we do the right things for our people in Baltimore City, and especially since we're paying taxes in Baltimore City and across this nation. But good point, absolutely. And something I will give a quick shout out. In my restaurants, all of them, 121 in every single state, all of my employees wear masks.
Mic check.
Mic check, mic check. Charlene on Facebook says, when corporations literally are in the pockets of politicians and the state-controlled police department, this sort of madness is the kind of stuff that happens. And she's absolutely right. And I don't abide any politician, especially American politician, that says they don't know what to do and that this is a new pandemic and that, all this is new, and so they're just throwing up their hands and saying, "Oh, I didn't know what to do." Other countries, the way this pandemic has traveled around the globe, are weeks behind us. You can look at what happened in Korea. You can look at what happened in China. You can look at what is happening in Italy and see what local governments and national governments are doing. Municipalities are doing. Mayors are doing. You can actually go online and watch the different addresses that they're doing. You can see the different measures that they're doing. You can see how they care about their people. So any U.S. politician, any mayor of anywhere in the United States that says they don't know what to do, they're just not paying attention. Mic check.
Mic
I'd like
check.
to jump in. I'd like to jump in for a minute. Can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay. First, it's wonderful to have Oscar's family here with us from the West Coast, and the national unity in the fight against police brutality and police murder. Very good to have you here. I think it was one of you, I don't remember if it was his uncle or his aunt, made the point that in this system, unfortunately, life is cheap. I want to talk about that for a minute and talk about the system for a minute. For starters, police killings today are far worse in terms of the numbers, far worse than lynchings were 100 years ago. Even if you multiply the number of lynchings to equal the increase in the size of the population, still police killings a year, which are about 1,100, are 4 times worse than the average number of lynchings during the period when lynchings were taking place. So in this system, life is cheap and racism is intense. And I want to relate that to the coronavirus. 3 of the critical shortages with the coronavirus are masks, hospital beds, and respirators. And in the United States, all of those 3 things are in deadly shortages, and the reason for those shortages is because of the dynamics of capitalism. For example, let's look at face masks. Some years back, the decision was made by the manufacturing companies to export those jobs because they could get cheap labor to make the masks and increase their profits. So they moved it out of the United States for the most part, and most of the masks have been made in China in recent years. That's why we're having a problem with masks in the United States. It was the profit motive. It was the interests of big business to make money. Second, when we come to hospital beds, the U.S. has had a policy where they only want to have enough hospital beds that they can be generally full on a day-to-day basis and increase the profits of the hospitals, which are profit-based enterprises, and so they don't have the surplus. In fact, in the last 20 years, they closed about 20 hospitals in the New York City area because that was the way they viewed running healthcare profitably, but it's deadly. And the third big shortage are these ventilating machines. If they don't have enough, then people die, and they make racist decisions like who they're going to pull off the machine and put someone else on, whose life do they think is going to last longer, who has fewer underlying conditions, and there's a racist component to that. At any rate, in 2007, there was a federal commission, and they wanted to get prepared for a possible pandemic in the future. And so they contracted with a company to design a ventilator that's smaller, that's cheaper, and that's more mobile, and it can be easily moved around the country. So that company produced 3 prototypes, working models. But then the company was bought out by a larger company, and the larger company was already making ventilators of the more expensive type, and their profit rate was high. And they deliberately sabotaged the project to make 70,000, that was the number, to make 70,000 extra ventilators to have on hand in an emergency. They sabotaged that because they didn't want to undercut their own profits. They wanted to continue to make the more expensive, more profitable models. So at every step of this process that we look at, this system is guilty. It's guilty of looking at life as something cheap. It's guilty of many people dying unnecessarily. I think that we have to really get rid of this system. We have a range of opinion within those of us active in West Wednesday on the question of the electoral process. I, for one, don't believe in the electoral process. I think we need revolution. I think you can't, revolution is not on the ballot. And as far as I'm concerned, politicians, and maybe we'll make an exception here for Ricky, but politicians in general are loyal to this system, and they know who they serve. They serve the rich and the powerful, not us. And I think that it's not good enough to put different politicians in. We have to put the whole working class in power with multiracial unity and defeat the system of capitalism. I don't think there's any other way to put a stop to police brutality, to have a society that cares for us, to have a society where we think about the future and we prepare for possible future healthcare issues, and where we don't put making a dollar on top of everything else. So that's my outlook here, and I think we're going to win. It's going to take a long time, but we're going to win because nothing lasts forever, and this capitalist system is going to be a thing of the past at some point in the future.
Mic check. Mic check.
Mic check. Mic check.
I wanted to just correct. I said devalued. I didn't say cheap. That sounds a little small. But I said life is devalued. But I do agree with you. I want a revolution too. Okay? But I know one thing, it's not going to be no revolution by winning their voting whenever that happens. So those people who vote and everybody that vote, if you want another 4 years of Donald Trump, I don't like Biden. You know what I'm saying? I'm not part of the political process either. But I don't want to tell people I want revolution. I'm down with it. But the revolution ain't gonna happen. We can't even get people to put masks on. So we have to be realistic in what we want. You know what I'm saying? I want it too. But we have to be careful how we speak to our people at this time. Because if nothing happens, we'll have 4 more years of this fool that's absolutely clown and an idiot, and he don't care about nothing but the dollar bill. He is the capitalist. Okay, he's the big C. And so I understand. I want some revolution too, but we have to really be clear, absolutely, that if we start our revolution, if it ain't gonna be ready by election time, we gonna be in trouble. How about that?
Well, I just want to. I think you're right. I think everything you said about Trump is true. He's a fool and he's dangerous and he represents the capitalists. But I just want to tell a brief story about these politicians being more similar than we think. In the Great Recession, in 2008, all around the country, they cut about 25% of the staff in all the various public health departments at the local level, state level, national level. Under the Obama administration, they never replaced them. Similarly, of course, under the Trump administration, they never replaced them. So when this pandemic hit the United States, if we had been better prepared and had more public health workers, we could have done like they did in Germany and South Korea. We could have had quickly a large amount of the test kits, and any place someone got sick, in the very, very beginning, had 5 doctors, like they did in China. 5 doctors go and visit that person, figure out every contact they have with another human being in the last 2 weeks, visit all of them, test them, and sequester anybody that is at risk of having it, and minimize the spread of the disease. They could have done that. But those cuts in the public health departments occurred under Democrats and Republicans alike. I think they're all beholden to short-term profit, and I don't think any of them care about the working class, about people of color in particular. And I think some of the liberals who talk a good game, liberal politicians, are often at least equally guilty for a lot of these horrendous decisions that are made based on what's profitable and what's not.
Mike Chat, I just want to say I'm with you with all that, as what you said. I already know politicians are politicians, but that's the structure, and until the walls come tumbling down, all of that is true. It is absolutely true, and I think everybody on here knows that that's true. But we still have to deal with this system. Me personally, I vote for God. I say everybody, okay? But my people will call by my name, will humble themselves. I feel that. I feel like if we did that, that we would set ourselves in heaven at once. That's what I believe. But making it happen with the people that we're dealing with, we got to put in work. I'm down with the revolution. I want it to come. It can come tomorrow. But I just know that we got to put in work. And I know the reality of what we're dealing with. That's all I'm saying. But you're right about all that. And I'm not saying that Trump as a Republican is better than that. But we just have to say this. Trump had 5 years to put all that stuff in place. If Obama didn't do it, then you could have been done it by now. So I'm not saying Democrat or Republican. I'm neither. Okay? I'm with God. I know that this is his hand is all in this, and I see it and I respect it. But I'm not going to be telling people, don't do nothing just because they faith not be like my faith. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I agree with you. I agree we got to put in the work. There's a lot to be done.
Right. And I just want to add that I agree with my sister that we definitely got to do something. I agree with you, Uncle Bill, about the revolution needs to happen. I'm with it too. But as for now, we got to take that as for now mentality. You know what I mean? You got to have that type of mentality to get through, because if we just take revolution alone, nothing's really going to get done. And these people going to be still flat and doing the same thing. I think about our ancestors and their fight. You get what I'm saying? How they had to actually fight and try to bring different laws into place or whatever. Until we change these laws, we're forever enslaved. Until we do that, and we gotta do something. So I urge everybody to vote, vote, vote. That's my thing. Vote, vote, vote. Something gotta be done. And like now, that's why I endorse Mayor Ricky. He talks like us, he walks like us. It ain't about the skin color, because we know that don't mean nothing. Like my brother Boone said, he called them nigger peas. And I believe him, so yeah, I'm right there with y'all.
Mic check, mic check. One small point. Shanae on Facebook says, until we make the walls crumble down, the working class has fought back, can fight back, and will fight back. And I want to share something small about revolution. In 1789, right before the French Revolution, the top 3%, the top richest 3% of people in France owned 35% of the land. In America, in 2017, the top 1% owned 40% of the land. And that was in 2017. That's 3 years ago. They own even more now. Revolution is coming. We all need to prepare. Mic check.
Mic check. I just want to say that I'm kind of I run to the left of Uncle Bill. I think that even communists are too organized for me. I believe in nothing more than I'm a straight up anarchist. But I also believe that if the enemy leaves a gun on the field, you use it. And if they're going to give us a vote, then you use it, and you do the best you can with that tool. You do the best you can with that. It's not going to get you what you want, but it'll get you something that's better than what you got. And so that's how I look at voting and political campaigns and all that stuff. And for me, I believe in a nonviolent revolution. I believe in as the sister said, I believe that God has a revolution waiting for us, but I believe that we're going to have to work for that every way that there is to work for it, in the streets, in the polling booths, in our own heads and hearts, until it gets here. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
This is the way we take back our cities and our streets, and the way we change the political process prior to the revolution. Because I'm with you, Uncle Bill, on that as well. Is by putting folks in office again, and Sister Tawanda, you said it, that not only look like us, but that are us. Imagine if we had the Oscar family in City Hall, or a Sister Tawanda in City Hall. So many election cycles, we get folks that come out and say, support me, vote for me, put my yard sign out, pass out literature. But once they get in office, it's amazing of how they take no one from community, no community advocate, no community organizations. They don't take them with them to City Hall. But yet they're out campaigning for the prior 8 months saying, this is what I'm going to do, or this is what we can do together, and all of that. But once they become mayor, or once they become president of city council, or even city council, it seems like they catch amnesia. They forget about the promises, and not promises to corporations, but promises to the people. And I think one of the comments on social media was about, follow the money, trace the money, whereas you're always going to have politicians that are going to only have loyalty to the corporations that endorse them and give them money. And that's why I'm proud to say I didn't take any money. My entire campaign has been self-funded by me, with donations from folks around Baltimore City only, where it's $5, $10, because I don't want to owe corporations any favors. I want to owe Baltimore favors. But I just want to say, what if we had a Sister Tawanda in City Hall, or Uncle Bill in City Hall? That's what changes the political process in the political arena, is making sure we put those type of individuals. It's amazing how we talk about now essential. Me personally, I believe everyone is essential. I think when we start classifying and saying that this person's job is not essential, or this person is not essential, I think we start devaluing someone's worth. Because right now in McDonald's and KFC, guess what? The 15-year-old kid is considered essential. But this would have been three years ago, that 16-year-old young kid was not essential, which meaning they wasn't important. They wasn't vital to the success of the city. So we have to make sure that, or why can't we make sure that the
Hey guys, keep it down.
the manager at Burger King is a city council member. So that's how you change a political process, is making sure you have real folks representing the people in city hall and in government versus those that have had all the education and got the degrees and they reached out to ExxonMobil and they got a check for $250,000. They're not going to be the folks that really represent us. It has to be boots on the ground. You know, you brought up Brother Boom. I love that guy. But you know, imagine if Boom was in City Hall or Shorty was in City Hall. If Shorty was in City Hall, I don't know though. But I had to go down there every day with Shorty. But those are the type of people that are passionate, that are advocates, that don't care what the outcome is to them personally, but they're out there fighting for folks on a daily basis. And they're true, not only fighting for folks, because a lot of people fight, right? But fighting for folks with that passion of betterment for everybody. And that's the type of people we need representing us, whether you're a Democrat, independent, Republican, liberal, it doesn't matter. But if you're fighting for the cause of betterment for all, then that's the people that I'm supporting and I'm getting behind.
Mike check.
Mike check, Uncle Bobby. I've been listening and been great listening and hearing everyone speak. I don't want to forget about, of course, Tawana first. I want to, definitely give a shout out to you for, your tenacity, your relentlessness, and representing your brother and seeking justice for him on a continuous basis. I'm talking about 350 Wednesdays in a row. I mean, who does that?
Tawana.
My sister warrior Tawana. You know what I'm saying? But that is an example of what it's going to take to really bring about real systemic change. And so we definitely want to thank you for the work that you've put in and what you're doing now. This is another means for us to continue to campaign for the justice that we want for those that have been murdered, especially by those police officers that sit in those places, and that continuously do that. This is another opportunity for us to think about how to continue our campaign to bring about this real justice, and it looks and appears to be that we will have to move to this virtual reality, this online reality. How do we make it work? How do we get other people involved? And how do we campaign for those who we want to be in office, if that's what we're going to do? How do we make that happen? So we got to be very wise today, because as we know, coronavirus has really watered down our issues. And
guys,
precedence over the issues that we're really been struggling for the last 10 years since Oscar's been murdered, and that's police accountability. So we don't want to let that go, because that's still real in the essence of what we just talked about, this officer coughing on this young woman. You know what I'm saying? Or the sergeant, or the sergeant who arrested the doctor, as my wife reminded me, which is so true. So we still have police abuse taking place during this time when everybody's eyes is on this coronavirus and what's happening, and rightfully so. We also have to be aware that this is real. So not only how, can we seek justice for our loved ones, but how can we help, again, to save the lives of those that may not even be aware how important this time is and about us protecting ourselves and saving our lives, but also being involved, because this has isolated us. Oscar, in my own words, has went mute to some degree, in a sense that we haven't been able to bring the families together. Just a quick history, last year in Las Vegas, we had about 175 families from all over the country come. And our plans was to have it in Washington, D.C. on September the 17th this year. But right now, it appears to have been interrupted. So how can we continuously still bring the families together to talk about these issues so that we can have some political voice in who we elect, who's going to represent police accountability? We know Congressman Ro Khanna is right now trying to champion a bill that's called, I forget the title of it, but it speaks specifically about police accountability, but it's built off the back of AB 392 that we passed here in the state of California. So when that voice began to be heard concerning that legislation, if it's going to be heard now because of Corona, the way it watered down things, how do we begin to support him in making this bill a national reality to the United States? You know what I'm saying? So these are things that we have to figure out how to make happen so that we don't let go of this issue of police violence in this country.
And I think on Friday is a good start. When we have the Families United for Justice town hall meeting, where we can see all the families, see how they doing. We're gonna have some entertainment. We're gonna have some speakers to want to go speak, of course, and so we can bring these families together. So even if it's virtual, 'cause if you haven't been to a Families United for Justice, I'm talking to those who have not been. It's something that you cannot explain because you have these families all impacted by a racist criminal system. Your loved one is murdered. It's almost like those families that's losing loved ones and they can't be with them. You know what I'm saying? Because they can't call them or nothing. You feel some kind of way. This just ain't right. You know what I'm saying? But your loved one is murdered and it just ain't right. But nobody is being held accountable. So when these families come together, all of same, we got a slogan, bonded by blood, united in love. Yeah. And that's our slogan because there's a lot of blood that's been lost in that room. But we come together, we had karaoke, we had all kinds of stuff. We had fun to lift the spirit of the family so they can continue to do this work. And I feel like this, it's an energy, it's a synergy. So where we can't be with one another, we are with one another right now. I feel everybody's synergy right now. So I feel like Friday is going to be just as powerful that we come together and then we can begin to continue on with this legislation and even other things that are happening around that we come together. So there's no stopping because there's this thing that says, I must work the work of him who sent me while it's day. Because when the night has come, time for work will be done away. Okay, so just because God created this, he wants us to think bigger and better. Okay, do we want it? Do we want it? If we want it, we're going to work for it. That's just all to it. If we want it, we're going to have to figure out ways to get it. And as you can see, ways are being figured out. So the struggle continues. And ain't no stopping us now. We're on the move. We really, really got the groove. Yeah.
Mic check.
Mic check.
He got the mic on fire. I don't even want him to drop it. But again, I just want to thank y'all so much. And yes, and the Families United for Justice, that really changed my life. Like, that's something that you invited all the families to, not just my family, but all the families. That's something that we cried together. We laughed together. We went to church together. Whatever we needed to do, we did it together. To see the point, I didn't even want to leave. Like, every time y'all do it, I don't want to leave that space. It's really hard. And I wouldn't want to wish no family into this family because it's heartbreaking. But just to know it's in place, it's like when the world serves you lemons, you make lemonade. And as I saw the times transitioning over, I'm like, it's time to hold. Y'all know when to hold and when to fold. So that's why weeks ago I decided, before I got that warning and got kicked off the corner, I'm like, no, we need to bring it in. It ain't how can we tell people to take this thing serious if I'm standing out there talking about no justice, no peace, and people getting sick? No, that's not the right way. You got to lead by example. And also, when I saw the video of the officer coughing, even though I'm in my home, I burnt that phone up. I called the mayor, Lottie Dottie, and everybody. I know y'all saw the interview. I said I demanded his job gone, and for them to let this joker go, he could just resign just like that.
Be quiet.
And cough on somebody else or brutalize someone. That was a terrorist act. But again, like you said, we just got to utilize the time. And I feel like now, even though I want to be outside with West Wednesday, but you got to utilize your tools and what they give us. And right now, it's bringing West Wednesday on another level because I used to always want to invite y'all to come to Baltimore on the corner. Now we doing it through the internet. So I love y'all. We will see y'all Friday. And do anybody else want to say something before we wrap it up?
Mic check, mic check.
My check.
Two things. One is for our guests from the West Coast. Um, Two of the cops that played the leading role in the killing of Tyrone West were named Chapman and Ruiz. So one of the chants that we do at our rallies is Chapman and Ruiz, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. It's hard to have chants in this setting here because we're not outside, all together, and we can't speak like that. But I just wanted to bring that up. And the other thing is, 2 weeks from this Friday is May Day. It's a very important revolutionary holiday, and we're going to do an online program starting at 6:30, and I just wanted to announce that.
Thank you. My check.
Mic check, mic check.
So do anybody have any more announcements before we wrap it up? Well, I guess not. So again, I want to thank our honored guests. I'm humble, Uncle Bobby and my sister Queen. And if you haven't got a chance to watch Fruitville Station, it's gonna make you cry. It really is. It's really sad, traumatizing. But I urge you, while you inside, please watch Fruitville Station, and that'll let you know the realness and what happens with our family. But more important, the thing that Fruitville don't show you is how the uncle of Oscar Grant Bobby and his wife been non-stop fighting, how they took fighting to a whole nother level, how for the last 10
Go to your rooms.
they've been pulling families together.
I told y'all 4 times to be quiet. Go to your rooms now.
So at the end of the day, like Boone said, we all we got, we all we need. And I want to give JC, who's not with us, I'm quite sure he's probably somewhere on the front line out there handing out food. I want to give him a special shout out. I want to give Abby, I want to give Opal, I want to give all of our frontline workers a shout out, all of our essential workers a shout out, and the health field and whatever field. Anytime you gotta go out here and go to work during these type of times, you definitely need a big shout out. So love you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. Remember, no matter what, live to love to live. I love you all. We want accountability. So when I say what do we want, I want y'all to say accountability. What do we want?
Accountability.
When do we want it?
Now.
When do we want?
Accountability.
When do we want it?
Now.
All right, we
If
won't.
we don't get it, shut it down.
Yes, if we don't get it, shut it down. Yeah, say it one more time. Say
If
it.
we don't get it, shut it
Shut
down.
it down.
Shut it down.
Don't like that, Uncle Bill.
Yeah,
I like it.
Uncle Billy said to shut it all the way down. He will.
All right.
We see that West Coast coming out.
All right. All right. Bye-bye.
All right, love you guys. Bye bye.